Hello, welcome back to another edition of the Small Caps podcast. I'm Peter Capsanis. Well, he's becoming a familiar face, and today he's back again to talk about copper. Jason Bontempo is the executive chairman of ASX-listed company Odin Metals, ASX code ODM. Lock that one away. Jason Bontempo, welcome to the show, and good to see you again.
Hi, Peter. Yeah, it's good to be back. Thank you.
Odin's been in the news a couple of times this month already. Before we get into that, can you give the audience a quick recap of Odin's project area there in northern New South Wales? A bit about the history, the geography, and the existing infrastructure.
Yeah, sure. Odin controls a good 150 kilometre strike of the Koonenberry fault in far west New South Wales, just 80 kilometres east of Broken Hill. It's very prospective for base metals and in particular copper. It does host the largest copper resource in far west New South Wales at Grasmere, which Odin owns 100% of, currently at almost 6 million tonnes at 1% copper. But the project area is significantly underexplored. In fact, the majority of holes have only ever gone into the Grasmere resource, which is only one of many areas to test. As you quite rightly pointed out, we've had some news this week and we've done some drilling at two prospect areas, one at Grasmere and one at simbrickvale. And, the idea is to, talk you through the results with this meeting now.
Yeah, so high-grade copper intersected at Grasmere. That's the headline on your release this week. So tell us about the details there at Grasmere and so forth.
Yeah, okay. So Grasmere is a historic resource. As I mentioned, it's almost 6 million tonnes at 1%. Now that resource sits over a strike length of about 3 kilometres, and that's where the majority, if not all, of the drilling in this whole project has ever been is in that little small area. Now that Grasmere resource sits in a good 22 kilometres of strike of what we call VMS geology, or volcanic massive sulfide. You asked the question earlier, and that is the Koonenberry copper project. It's a number of prospect areas with VMS geology that is very prospective for hosting high grade copper and high grade base metals, including nickel. So this week we reported some drill results at Grasmere. And I think the main takeaway that the market or investors need to look at here is we've only really just scratched the surface in drilling at Grasmere. As I said, that resource is over a 3 kilometre strike, which sits within a 22 kilometre strike of VMS geology. And what this drilling has pointed out is that there are a number of gaps in the resource and potential resource just at the 3 kilometre strike of Grasmere. And what we feel is there is more tonnes, there is more copper discovery to be made just at the Grasmere resource alone, let alone the potential that trend holds across the 22 kilometres. So moving forward, we are going to be continuing to drill at Grasmere, and in particular, our geologists have identified a number of gaps in the resource that have potential for more copper mineralisation. So one to watch, and just so you know, we're drilling there right now. The rigs are turning.
So Jason, can you go into some detail in relation to what kind of strike rate, what kind of hits you've actually had for the audience to understand a bit clearer?
Yeah, well, we had a very limited drill program. It was only 9 holes, and in 4 of them, we intersected some really good grade, good copper grades, economic grades, and thicknesses. And in particular, hole 6 was 3 metres at 1.7% copper. But what was really interesting about that hole is it sat between. It was in a big gap in the resource, so an area that had not been drilled before, and there was no resource placed in it, and clearly there is copper there. And there's a number of these gaps that we have to test, and that was only one. We only drilled 9 holes, and we got a strike of 1 and 2, strike rate of 1 and 2. The other really interesting hole was the hole 12, which was ended in mineralisation. So it finished in mineralisation because it was what we call a pre-collar, where you drill RC hole first, and then you drill, then you follow in with diamond. Because what we're doing there is we're anticipating this potential for more high-grade copper at depth, and the best way to do that is with diamond. And so the hole finished in copper mineralisation was 2 metres at 4.6% copper. So right now, the drill rig is going to be finishing that off at this campaign over the next week or so. So what we're showing at Grasmere alone is that there is potential for a lot more tonnes. And there's a lot of gaps that we have to test, and there's going to be a lot more drilling. And that's just in that 3 kilometre strike. Remember that it sits within 22 kilometres of VMS strike, and that's just at one of the trends. I haven't even talked about simbrickvale yet.
Yeah, well, I was going to just ask you. A good segue for simbrickvale. So these latest results follow some more recent results early this month, and as you say, you're still drilling. You'll be drilling in the days and weeks ahead. So, in terms of simbrickvale, how far away or how close is that to Grasmere, and what's the potential there that you hope to potentially unlock?
Yeah, so simbrickvale sits about 30 kilometres west, so not that far at all. And the reason why the market liked those results is that we went in and drilled in between two historic drill holes, which are 600 metres apart on a north-south orientation. And essentially, as we drilled only 100 metres north of that southern hole, we intersected a copper mineralisation continuously. So we had a continuous intersection over the holes of mineralisation. We're sort of showing that it hangs together over that 100 metres. And I think the market's now assuming that, does mineralisation run all the way up to the most northern hole, which is 600 metres to the north? And remembering that those two holes sit within a good 1.2 kilometre strike in that area, and the whole simbrickvale trend runs for 12 kilometres. So it's early days, and there's more drilling to be done. We are planning on going back to simbrickvale on the next campaign after we finish at Grasmere. So right now we're drilling at Grasmere, and then we'll move over to simbrickvale, and we've got a good 20 holes, RC holes planned, testing if that mineralisation continues at simbrickvale. But also excitingly, the other thing that the geologists interpreted was that there is a potential for an iron oxide copper gold. There is potential for iron oxide copper gold to the southern area of where we've drilled at simbrickvale. There's a big magnetic alteration, magnetite alteration that the view is that potentially there is iron copper gold mineralisation that could sit beneath it. So we are planning a deep hole there, a good 250 metre RC hole. And needless to say that iron oxide copper gold deposits are enormous. They're bulk tonnage at a lower grade, but bulk tonnage and big. So some exciting drilling to come over the next few weeks.
It's certainly an exciting story to tell and share. So you've got encouraging results at Grasmere, encouraging results on the horizon for simbrickvale, and more of a diversified or diverse mix of what lies beneath, literally just around the corner. So what's the long game for Odin on this project, Jason? Copper's been, or the copper price has been on a high in recent times. So how do you look to, I guess, leverage off this, or is it more a sustained exploration phase at this stage?
Yeah, so the long game is to continue to test the potential at Grasmere and at simbrickvale, and ideally, what you want to do is you want to move to a tonnage that becomes economic for mining. So that would be, if you're averaging 1% from surface, that's good economic copper grades. You want to get to plus 10 million tonnes as a first starter. And, we're going to test the potential at simbrickvale. We're going to test the potential at Grasmere. But not only that, there's a good 3 or 4 other VMS trends that sit in this northern part of the project. For instance, up at Watago, we're going to have to do some work there. So look, at any one time, we could be making new discoveries for high-grade VMS copper deposits. And at the moment, it's focusing on building, drilling to build the potential at the known trends.
Jason, the junior exploration sector right around Australia is very upbeat at the moment, considering we've gone through 2 years of a pandemic. Why do you think that is?
Well, quite frankly, if you're reading the news, the big investment banks overseas in the US, Goldman Sachs recently came out and said there's a molecule crisis. We're running out of everything. And that's just the reality, is that there's been long-term lack of exploration. And with the battery metals market really launching, there is high demand now for battery metals, which includes copper. And there are other metals, including lithium, obviously, that's having a great run as well.
Yeah. So with that in mind, your message to would-be investors about Odin, obviously unearthing a lot on the ground and literally what lies beneath. So why should people want to jump on the Odin train?
Well, we see a strong forecast for copper over the next 5 years, really. And there is going to be a lot of demand for increased exploration. And here we are with 150-kilometre long strike of mineralised structure, that being the Koonenberry fault for copper and base metals. And we're already proven that there is good copper grades, near surface. So it's all about doing the work, drilling it out, and adding the tonnes. And eventually, you're going to get economic copper projects, with more exploration that goes on.
Well, Jason, Executive Chairman of Odin Metals, thanks for joining us on the Small Caps podcast today. Looks like there's a few more exciting times ahead and just around the corner. We look forward to catching up with you on Small Caps again really soon.
Yeah, no, thanks, Peter. And look, just to finish off, obviously we're still funded with cash at around $2 million, and we're capped at around 13 or 14 million in market cap. So still very early stage for this large holding, and drilling is ongoing. So be sure to have a good look. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, and I'm sure we'll be sharing your drilling results when they come out in the next few weeks.
Thanks, Peter.